Hello everyone. Today we're going to be asking the question, was King Dinglebat batty? Good question. What do you think, Penelope? Well, before we look at King Dinglebat and why he was King Dinglebat the first, second, third and fourth, I should give you a little sneak peek into the second Our Rabbit's Bears, which will contain stories about the king, the current king, and a little bit about royal bears, which might be quite interesting for you at home, because although there is only one king of the bear dimension, and he's right here, hiding, but there are other members of the royal family, just like we have here. So we could have princesses and princes and lords and dukes and duchesses. And those bears, in common with the king, there'll be a slight sort of, Penelope, try and demonstrate. You have, well, I don't know if you've got a sparkle. Not really, but imagine she's going to model, right? And there's a slight sort of sparkle, a glimmer to the fur, if you like. And in the cases where perhaps the fur is not, 1 minute, Mustardo, sorry about that. Have you got any sparkly? Really? No. So here's a good example. Mustardo hasn't got any sparkly bits, but if a bear has no sparkly bits actually in their fur, but they've got a kind of, Mustardo's got a lot of personality, but there'll be a kind of glow, like an energy sort of glow. There'll be a certain energy around that bear. Oh, my royal bear, mummy. Sorry. But he is very special. Watch out for book 3, because Mustardo is a very interesting kind of bear. Yeah, you are, one of the new types of bears, actually, after rabbits who are bears. There is another type of bear that gets discovered, and he is that type of bear. So, yes, have a look at your bears at home. Have a look for a bit of sparkle in the fur, sparkle in the eye, and then use your discernment. Have a look through your companion guide, the first 12 types of bears. See if you can identify your bear as any of those types. And then remember there'll be another 12, and then another 12 after that, plus a few more coming. So if your bear is not one of those 12 types, they could be one of the types in a future book, or possibly royal bear, which we will be getting to royal bears in the second companion guide. So that's a little bit about how to recognize one, bit of an early preview if you like. But coming back to King Dinglebat, one of the earlier kings, I can't remember exactly how many kings along he was, but the fact is that the Bear Dimension Society as we know it today sort of restarted. There was an earlier Bear Dimension Society that was linked with a different, so not the people dimension, it was linked with some other dimension where bears went backwards and forwards and had lives. But there's more to tell about that another time. So the bear civilization as we know it today started in about 1900s when the teddy bear was introduced here, because obviously otherwise they couldn't come back and forth. And then after about 10 years of that society building up in the bear dimension, the great mind sent a king or queen, because it realised, yes, a monarch is needed. And it actually sent Queen Isabella. And she was a great mover and shaker, and she built the monarchy from the ground up. But she was such a mover and a shaker that she did in fact move on quite quickly after about 3 years. And that is what happens with royal bears, is that once they want to pursue something different, like ordinary bears, they are a type of bear, and then they might get to a point where they go, you know what, I've had enough of being a Siberian Cheese Bear or a Besser Bear or an Otter Bear or whatever, and they want to pursue something different, something to be and become something else. So they move to that other type, and it's the same with royal bear. So in the castle, what happens is once a royal bear decides, this isn't for me anymore, or just, this isn't for me, then what actually happens is the sparkle goes out of their fur, and obviously people around them will notice, and there'll be a conversation, and obviously they'll go off to do something else. So it's quite important you understand that, because King Dinglebat, the first, second, third and fourth, this is what happened to him. He obviously turned up all sparkly fur. King Dinglebat the first, oh, it's hair traps, I'm going to come to be king, how lovely. But to be fair, it's quite a hard job being a monarch. And he didn't really understand very much about what was going on. It's, like I say, it's quite hard to get your head round. And, it was in the early days of the monarchy as well. So after a time, he thought, well, to be honest, I don't think this is for me. I say, chaps, not for me. Sparkle started to dim. Oh dear, the king doesn't want to be king anymore. And one of his staff persuaded him just perhaps take a little bit of time out, which he did. He took a little bit of time out, and he realised, wait a minute, it's just that I didn't know what was going on. I need to come back and, try again. So he comes back, Sparkle fully back in the fur, and he tries again. But King Dinglebat, to be fair, he bumbles about and he makes a lot of mistakes, like we all do in life. But at that point, the palace staff did let him know that obviously that he was making these mistakes. And he got very down about it, and he felt like, this is terrible. How can I possibly be king if I'm making this many mistakes? It can't be right, can it? Great mind must have made a mistake. So off he goes again, but no, again they just persuade him, well, see, go for a sabbatical, think about it. So he thinks about it. And to give him credit, he realises, wait a minute, just because I've made mistakes doesn't mean that I can't do something. The process of learning something is about making mistakes and failing. And he might have had a little help coming to that conclusion. So he comes back for a third time, and he decides that he's going to try harder. He is going to learn how to be king. So he consults the history books. Obviously not a lot of history at that point, but there is some history, and there are some very, very old books from the earlier Bear civilization about the monarchy. So he gets all of that, and he studies books about the people dimension, how to be king. And you've probably guessed it, haven't you? So he's learning about how everybody else does being king. And yes, at the end of that term, he's like, no, this isn't for me. Because how could it possibly be for him? He's been learning about how other people do king, not how he does king. So after another sabbatical, he comes to that conclusion. Maybe I should do king the way I want to do it. And he comes back. Obviously, you learn a bit by that time. He's making less mistakes. By this time, the palace staff have been told not to tell him if he makes a mistake, because, they're making their own mistakes there. But that's what they're doing. So he comes back. He thinks he's making less mistakes, and he's doing a better job. He's being him. But it didn't take him too long to figure out, this King Lark, I'm not really very interested in it anymore. And then the Sparkle, obviously, went out of his fur. And the palace staff helped him out with arrangements to go travelling, because that's what he really wanted to do. He wanted to go out and discover things in the world and learn more things and see, perhaps if he wanted to be some other kind of bear, what kind of bear that would be. So he went off travelling. And the reason that, in case you're wondering why they didn't call him just King Dinglebat the First, this is the palace staff for you. They were obviously a little bit worried about, the fact that he'd gone away and come back, and they were worried that the bears in the population would feel like, they would lose confidence in the king. So they thought it was just a bit of a PR move to, when King Dinglebat, people knew, the bears knew that this was the same king, but it just sounded better, It's King Dinglebat the First, the one that didn't really know what he was doing. King Dinglebat the Second, well, he came back and he tried really hard, he made mistakes. And he was actually beloved for his royal daftness, royally daft, but the people loved him for it. And the people did tend to love the kings and queens, to be fair, or the bears, they're the people, the population. And then obviously his third incarnation and fourth as the same bear. So King Dinglebat the Fourth was the one in the Siberian Cheese Bear story. And obviously I think it was probably a few months after that, that he realised, you know what, this king lark, probably not for me, but I do enjoy bird spotting, and he really enjoyed travelling in the mountains and, you know, getting a free lunch. He was probably good for a free lunch, to be fair, because once you've been king or queen and you go travelling, people will recognise you, so I think he was probably set up. So what do you think about King Dinglebat? Maybe he was just daft, going backwards and forwards and not really knowing what he was doing? Or maybe he was discovering himself piece by piece. What do you think?